Welcome to Allen Avenue Unitarian Universalists online worship. I'm John Howard, and my pronouns are he, him, and his. I serve as a member of the congregation's Board of Trustees. Our mission calls us to celebrate diversity, encourage spiritual growth, and promote social responsibility while we travel on and care for this earth. We are a freely gathered, open, welcoming community supported by your contributions, which can be made with the donate button on our website, by going to our Breeze program if you are a member, or by mailing your check to 524 Allen Avenue, Portland, Maine. Please note if the donation is your pledge or a gift to our Share the Plate. Our Share the Plate for March is the Opportunity Alliance. For 50 years, the Opportunity Alliance has worked with people to build better lives and stronger communities. They provide advocacy, leadership, and support to identify the goals and address the needs of individuals, families, and communities in Cumberland County. For more information, go to Share the Plate on our website or go to their website at opportunityalliance.org. This was nominated by our A2U2 member, Elizabeth Oatley. I'm so glad you joined us today and hope you will stay for conversation and coffee hour following the service.
Our words for chalice lighting are by George Kimmich Beach. In the mystery of life about us, there is light. It gives us a place to be, to grow, to rejoice together. It opens the pathways to love. In this place of friendship, there is freedom. Let the light we kindle go before us, strong in hope, wide in goodwill, inviting the day to come.
Resilience is sitting on the yoga ball that squirted out from under you yesterday. Resilience is the woodpecker banging on a tree despite a nasty headache. Resilience is returning to the dentist who scolded you last time around for failure to floss. Resilience is your sunny and optimistic belief that today you can schedule your COVID shots despite 57 failed attempts in the past 2 days.
Good morning. My name is Erica Bartlett, and our topic for today is resilience. Resilience is a big word, but what it means is being able to recover or adapt when something goes wrong or changes unexpectedly. And this morning, I'd like to tell you a little about someone who has been very resilient, a young woman named Amanda Gorman. Some of you might have seen her or heard about her because she read the poem when President Biden was inaugurated. She also read a poem before the Super Bowl, but it wasn't easy for her to get to the point where she could recite poems like that. That's because she has an auditory disorder that makes it difficult for her to hear certain sounds. And she has a speech disorder that makes it hard for her to say the letter R. Up until a few years ago, she couldn't say it at all. Imagine how hard that must be, to not always be sure you're hearing things the right way, or to not even be able to say your name correctly because it has a certain letter in it. It could be easy to get discouraged and frustrated and not want to say much at all. But Amanda had a lot of support from her mom and her school, and she was very determined. She wrote a lot, and in 3rd grade, she got interested in poetry as a way to express ideas. She was also inspired by the writer Maya Angelou, who spent many years not speaking up for herself. Amanda started writing a lot of poetry, and she's had a lot of success so far. In 2014, she was selected as the first Youth Poet Laureate of Los Angeles. And in 2017, she became the first person to be named the National Youth Poet Laureate. Being a poet laureate means that someone is honored for their poetry, and they're expected to help make people more aware of poetry and to appreciate it more. Amanda has certainly done that. But if she wanted to recite her poetry, she'd have to get past the speech problems. She decided to use the musical Hamilton to help her learn to say the letter R. She focused on one song that has a lot of R's. It's called Aaron Burr Sir. And it worked. Singing along with the song helped her say the letter, although she has also said, quote, "Even to this day, sometimes I struggle with it, which is difficult when you have a poem in which you say rise like 5 times, end quote." What's most amazing, though, is watching her read the poem. When I first saw it, I had no idea that she ever struggled to say certain words, and I was still impressed with how well she did. Once I knew that she had a speech disorder, though, I was even more impressed. She hasn't stopped with poetry either. She's written 3 books so far, including one for children titled Change Sings, a children's anthem, that will be released in September. She also founded a nonprofit organization called One Pen, One Page, focused on youth writing and leadership. She's appeared in magazines and on talk shows. Last year, she graduated from Harvard College, and she has dreams of becoming president. I'm sure it must have taken Amanda a lot of resilience to get to where she is, and she just turned 23 today. I have a feeling her resilience will carry her far, and just as Maya Angelou inspired her, I think Amanda will inspire many others.
Resilience is a force a plant knows, taking form from a tiny seed and pushing forth into the world to become.
So the earth speaks.
It is the green shoot pushing upwards towards the sun from a pine in the shade of a forest.
So the earth speaks.
It is a fruiting body emerging from the miles of mycelium beneath the forest floor.
So the earth speaks.
It is stems and flowers expanding from bulbs from last year's beauty.
So the earth speaks.
Resilience is the ecology moving back after a wildfire and regreening and repopulating with what came before and what will be next.
So the earth speaks.
It is the land being shaped by what flows and blows and crawls.
So the earth speaks.
Resilience is a people who have not given up after generations of being trampled on.
So the earth speaks.
It is hope for children and our future.
So the earth speaks.
It is all the species on the earth, their children, cubs, seeds, spores, shoots, trying to remain.
So the earth speaks.
It is birthing, blossoming, fruitation, growth, aging, and death. All will find death.
So the earth speaks.
It is survival.
So the earth speaks.
Not all will make it.
So the earth speaks. So the earth speaks. So the earth speaks.
My life goes on in a song of earth's lamentation. I hear the river far of him that wails a new creation. Through the tumult and the strife, I hear the music ringing. It sounds an echo in my soul. How can I keep from singing? What though the tempest round me roars? I know the truth it liveth. What though the darkness round me close? Songs in the night it giveth. No storm can shake my inmost home, while to that rock I'm clinging. Since love prevails in heaven and earth, how can I keep from singing? When tyrants tremble as they hear the bells of freedom ringing, when friends rejoice both far and near, how can I keep from singing? To prison cell and dungeon fire, our thoughts to them are winging. When friends by shame are undefiled, how can I keep from singing?
Resilience is getting up from the floor after doing your octogenarian exercises. Resilience is going to work with a hangover. Resilience is the teenager smoking a second cigarette after the first one made him sick. Resilience is not always a good thing.
Hello, my name is John Howard, and this is my reflection on resilience. You never know what's coming down the road. As they say, change is the one thing of which we can be certain, and a resilient person adapts well to change. They may have more than one tool in their toolbox. Some of these tools have been used many times and have been honed and strengthened till they are now almost second nature. This is good, making habitual certain qualities that have served us well. But circumstances can and do change. So we may find we need to pull less familiar tools out of the box. Gee, we may say, I never thought I'd need that. It's a bit rusty and feels awkward, but I'm sure glad I saved it. Because we tend to grow comfortable with the same old thing, imagination may be one of those tools that benefits us the most from frequent use. What do we do when we find we need a tool we simply don't have or don't know how to use? If we're smart, we look around for someone else who may help. And that points towards the resilience of communities. I'm even wondering if resilience can exist without community. The world today seems bent on erasing our connections with each other and our heritages, isolating and dividing us. What if I am alone, struggling in a new environment, deprived of a community of support? Think of the enslaved African torn from her home and brought to a strange world that is both hard and unfamiliar. Think also of the refugee or asylum seeker of today. It is at these moments that a person must recall communities of origin of their ancestors, allowing inborn qualities and strengths to rise and guide them. These strengths not only help them survive, but make possible the creation of a new community unlike anything that has gone before, yet sharing some of the bedrock values that make thriving possible. Now, naturally, my personal survival is a primary motivator for me, but with collections of people, the motivation is a little more complicated. While we at Allen Avenue UU are trying to figure out how to be resilient and thrive through changing circumstances, we also do well to ask, why should we? Ponder on that for a moment. The world is changing. Are we still needed? Do we have a message that is still relevant? I believe there are many answers to those questions in Widening the Circle of Concern, a report in book form from the UUA that many congregations are using as a guide for collective transformation and liberation. We will be having our own study group soon, so I strongly recommend that you obtain a copy. A download is free from the uua.org/widening website, and it can also be purchased at uua.org. It's all about resilience, flexibility, learning from our past, and adapting skillfully and intentionally to a changing future. And one thing that is certain for me, community is crucial for resilience. This church is where I get to practice skills of cooperation, patience, and humor, and some tools that I didn't even know I needed.
Resilience is picking the roast up from the floor and telling the guests that the floor has a very nice taste. Resilience is telling another joke after nobody laughed at the first one. Resilience is the toddler standing up for another step after falling backward on the first one. Resilience is what babies' bottoms are made for.
Good morning. I'm Anna Noyes-Benoit, a member of the Worship Committee. I doubt that I'm alone in finding myself wondering over these past weeks and months about the future after the pandemic is over, with the thought of when things return to normal, to the way they were. I recently heard this called the after times, but the more I think about it, I wonder if there will be an old normal. It seems historically when events such as wars or pandemic interrupt the course of events, there are also marked periods of major social change. For example, we talk about the time before a world war and contrast it with how different life became afterwards. We have needed to make major changes in so many areas of our lives. For example, people now work from home, they go to school from home, we meet via Zoom from home. We watch television games without the fans in the stands, which include a fake audio track with cheering spectators that are not there. The holidays were celebrated very differently this year. Perhaps this will lead to a rethinking of how we want to celebrate them. The journey out of this pandemic, once the virus has been broken, will require resilience. On the path that got us to this point, we had few choices. The journey back out can be more deliberate and one in which we have more control. As we are faced with major change, resilience will be key. I listened to a TED Talk recently on resilience by Lucy Hone, who pointed out 3 simple but major factors that can help people be more resilient. The first one is an acceptance and an understanding that life can be hard and that bad things do happen. Secondly, it's important to focus on the things that we do have control of and the things that we can change and make choices about. Finally, Hone suggests viewing choices we make with a question of, is this helping or hurting me? Fear and doubt are barriers to resilience. Moving to a path of gratitude and compassion is helpful and possible. Searching for the good in daily life can be a way to find these. I have done a lot of walking this past year. I challenge myself while walking each day to look for the most interesting or inspiring things I see and to come back home with at least 3. Beautiful trees and sunsets are often memorable, as are gardens and growing things. One day recently, we stopped into a small shop that used a 19th century printing press. The owner was happy to show us how it worked. So the owner and her lovely dog were 2 of the items on my list that day. Perhaps you'd be willing to consider this and accept this challenge and look for the good in your day today.
May your life be as a song, resounding with the dawn, to sing awake the light, and softly serenade the stars, ever dancing circles in the night. May your life be as a song, resounding with the dawn, to sing awake the light, and softly serenade to sing awake the night, and softly serenade to sing awake the light, and softly serenade to sing awake the night, and softly serenade to sing awake the light, and softly serenade to sing awake the night, and softly serenade to sing. May your life be as a song, resounding with the dawn, to sing awake the light, and softly serenade the stars, ever
Resilience is getting back behind the wheel after the accident. Resilience is that our flag was still there. Resilience is Hank Aaron facing down racial threats, standing in the batter's box and slamming out another home run.
Good morning. My name is Erica Bartlett, and some people have told me that they were very impressed with how resilient I was after my mom died. But it honestly never seemed like an option to not be resilient. It simply never occurred to me that I could respond in a less than positive way. I've been thinking about why that is, and I realized that it's because of my mom. Without knowing it, I learned resilience from her. I don't know if she would have described herself as resilient either, but looking back, I think she was. She was driven to achieve her dreams, and she wasn't going to let anything get in her way. Here are a few examples so you can see what I mean. My mom always wanted kids, but not quite as soon as she had them. My brother was born in the last half of her senior year of college, which wasn't the most convenient timing. She could have chosen not to go back to school, but that would have meant giving up on her dream of being a teacher. That wasn't an option for her, so she went back and finished late. Then she started working as a Chapter 1 teacher, and she taught some English as a second language. I think it was okay, but it wasn't what she really wanted. Her dream was to have a classroom. Unfortunately, her principal at the time didn't think my mom had what it took to be a classroom teacher. The principal made things difficult, but my mom didn't give up on her goal. Instead, I remember her taking classes in how to be more assertive, so she'd feel more comfortable advocating for herself. It must have helped because she started looking for a position in a classroom in other districts. And finally, she got one as a third grade teacher at Sebago Elementary School. To say she was happy was an understatement, and she poured an incredible amount of time and energy into that work. It paid off. Her students, her other kids, loved her, and while she still had the occasional challenge with bureaucracy, it was much better than at her old school.
And here's a picture of my mom reading to her classroom, one of her favorite activities.
As a completely different example, she was tenacious about having a rock flower garden as a border along the front of the yard, but she couldn't afford to buy stones to build it. Instead, over many years, she'd keep an eye out for rocks in the woods or elsewhere, then bring them home to slowly build the border.
And to show you, here's a little bit of her flower garden with the rocks surrounding it.
I could go on, but hopefully that gives you some idea of her toughness, of continuing on in the face of various challenges. And perhaps her example explains why, when she died, I decided to do what was needed to reach my goal of scattering some of her ashes from the top of Katahdin. It was 3.5 years and 130 pounds before I got there, but I did. More than that, I started being more social and trying new things. I knew that a long life wasn't a guarantee, and I became determined to make the most of my time while I could. And I continue doing that now, more than 20 years later. Life always presents obstacles, of course, but I try not to let them stop me. And I have my mom to thank for teaching me to be that way.
Come sing a song with me. Come sing a song with me. Come sing a song with me, that I might know your mind. And I'll bring you hope when hope is hard to find. And I'll bring a song of love and a rose in the winter time. Come dream a dream with me. Come dream a dream with me. Come dream a dream with me, that I might know your mind. And I'll bring you hope when hope is hard to find. And I'll bring a song of love and a rose in the winter time. Come walk in rain.
Resilience is leading a vibrant and productive life despite, or maybe because, of your knowledge of death. Resilience is coming back to life and ascending from your tomb. Now that's epic resilience, which some religions say we can all have. Resilience is laughing and loving in the midst of a pandemic. Resilience is something we all experience and demonstrate by crawling out of bed each and every day.
Helen Keller said, "Although the world is full of suffering, it is also full of overcoming it." As we go forward into the week, may we all help each other overcome suffering and find continued resilience in the challenges of our time.